Okay, in our previous lesson, we talked about conditional probability with this symbol, but we were given that probability in every problem. These problems, we have to figure out what that probability is. We need to remember that this bar means given that. Okay, so this is the probability of A happens given that B already happened. We need to remember that this symbol means and, so that means that both things have happened. Okay, so in our first problem, it says at a large university, the probability that a student takes calculus and is on the dean's list is 0.042. So I'm going to abbreviate this as the probability the student takes calculus and is on the dean's list is 0.042. The probability the student is on the dean's list, so probability of D, is 0.21. Find the probability that a student takes calculus given that, so probability that a student takes calculus given that he or she is on the dean's list. According to this formula, the probability that both the and is both events are happening goes on the top, and then the probability of the second thing, which is the dean's list, goes on the bottom. So according to this, we would put 0.042 on the top and 0.21 on the bottom and divide. So we get 0.2 as our final answer. Okay, the next one, it says a circuit to run model railroads has 8 switches. 2 are defective. If a person selects 2 switches at random and tests them, find the probability that the second one is defective, given that the first one is defective. So I'm going to say probability that the second one is defective, given the first one is defective. This should be the probability, according to the formula up here, that the second and the first one are defective over the probability of the second thing, right, which in this case is the first circuit being defective. So I need the probability of these items. So the probability of the first one being defective is going to be 2 out of 8. Okay, because it says 2 are defective out of the 8. Now the probability that both are defective would mean that the first one's defective and the second one's defective. If I had 8 batteries to start and I knew the chances were 2 out of 8, if I've already picked that one out, then I only have 7 batteries left. And if the first one's defective for sure, then there's only 1 chance the second one's defective. So I need to multiply these two things together. So I could do that over here. This would be the expression that goes in the top. And then the expression that goes in the bottom is 2 out of 8. So these cancel each other out, and we're just left with 1/7. And then if we round that in our calculators, it is 0.14 if we round that. Okay, example 3. 80 students in a school cafeteria were asked if they favored a ban on phones in the cafeteria. The results of the survey are shown in the table. If a student is selected at random, find these probabilities. It says, given that the student is a freshman, he or she opposes the ban. So this is like worded, given that it's a freshman. So given that's a freshman is the second part. He or she opposes the ban. So this should be the probability of both happening over the probability of just freshmen. So if we look at our chart, we don't see any totals in this chart, it would help to fill out some totals. So for this column, my total would be 38. For this column, my total would be 32. For this column, my total would be 10. If I add all these together, I get 80 for like my grand total. If I do my rows and I add these numbers together, I get 50. And if I add these numbers together, I get 30. So I've got all my totals filled in. That's going to help me get these probabilities. So if I just want to do the probability that they're freshmen, it's 50 out of the 80. So 50 out of the 80 goes in the bottom. If I want to know where they're freshmen and they oppose, that's this 27. So it's 27 out of 80. So I can do this in my calculator. I could take 27 out of 80 and divide by 50 out of 80. And I get 27 out of 50, and that is going to be 0.54. Okay, so next it says given that the student favors the band, or the band, so when I'm filling this out, the given that favors the band, so we're going to say, I guess we're going to say favors like this. The student is a sophomore, so sophomore would be the probability that both things are happening over the probability of the favor. So on the top part, sophomore in favor, sophomore favors is 23. So I've got 23 out of 80. And then just favors is going to be my total here, which is 38. So 38 out of 80. Okay, and then we're going to put that in our calculator. 23 out of 80 divided by 38 out of 80. We get 23 out of 38. And we have to change that to a decimal. So remember, there's this button down here. If you hit the green button and the arrow, it changes it to a decimal. We get 0.61 if we round that.